We are here for another edition of the podcast, and with me is Garland Scott. He has such an interesting background, but I found something. It was a great job description from the South Jacksonville Rotary Club a couple of years ago. I loved what they said about Dr. Garland Scott has specialized in program management, problem resolution, and ministering to inner city residents and ex-convicts throughout his professional career. He has worked closely with individuals, assisting them in correcting their life choices and setting or achieving new goals. Does that sum it up?
Yes, it does.
You do so much.
Mhm,
How I don't even know where to start.
mhm.
How do we get started? How did you get to Jacksonville? You're not from here.
No, I'm not from here. I was born in the Bronx, New York, and my mother later on we moved to Brooklyn, and that's where I spent most of my adult life. Um, I got involved with a life of violence, and I became a part of a gang, not a group as we would say it today, an organized gang, and I was the muscle. And after a while, as my father would always say, there's always a faster draw or a bigger adversary. And that happened where they put a bag on my life or a hit, and I had to leave to get out. So through different resources, I was able to relocate to a place called Nate Hunter, Georgia, and outside of Jacksonville. Had some relatives that I didn't know were there, and I stayed there for a while, and that's how I made it to Jacksonville, Florida.
So many questions in
Mm,
what you just said.
mhm,
You said you got into a gang.
mm,
How does that happen?
mm.
How do you, is it that you lived in that environment, or how did they recruit
No.
you? How did that happen?
Well, come from a good family. My mom was a single parent, and she raised us in Brooklyn. Um, I wanted to be a pharmacist as a kid. I got a job at a local drugstore. Back then, it was mom and pop drugstores, and they got me a job as a drug clerk. I would count the pills from age 12, stock everything, and it was a school called Fort Hamilton High School in Fort Hamilton section of New York. It was predominantly Sicilian and Italian, and I wanted to go to school. They had a course, and I went. And December 16th, they didn't like the color of my skin, so it was a pretty bad race riot, and I got beat pretty bad. And they killed my friend. They put him in a garbage can upside down and shot him, and they disfigured my face pretty bad. And I stayed in the hospital for 3 months. Knocked my teeth out, so I had to have titanium rods put in there. Broke my nose. My eye was dislocated. A couple of fractures, and just beat pretty bad. And I remember only one guy, the one that said, "The Boogie Boys are here tonight." It was a school party, December 16th. It's in the early mid 70s. And my mother followed it through, and we were able to get him. So from then I was placed into my zone school, which was the worst school in Brooklyn, Erasmus Hall High School. And I was to myself, and I started lifting weights because I determined I was not going to get beat up again. So two guys were arguing one day, and while they were arguing, I told them they shouldn't argue. And one hit me in the mouth. And when he hit me in the mouth, I hit him all over. I hit his friend all over. I don't know, maybe 10, 15 other people until they calmed me down. And the local gang spotted me. And they said, "We want to put him in part of it." Back then, they didn't invite you to a gang. You got initiated. They just closed the gates to the school or to wherever you at, and they jump you in or cut you in or burn you in.
I don't know what that means.
Jump in is everybody jump on you and beat you till you can't get up no more. They jump you. Burn you in is they take icy hot or Bengay and take down your pants and put it on your genitals and then throw water on it. Cut you in is they take a 007 knife at that time, which is a 14-inch blade, and they cut your arm open.
So
Mm.
which was done to you?
They tried to jump me in,
Hmm.
but and then jump after jump, when you beat up, then they do the rest. Well, I fought. And I fought. And finally, after about 3 or 4 minutes, the guy said, don't burn him. This dude's crazy. He doesn't give a fuck. So they named me Big Buck because I didn't give a. So that was my name, and whatever they told me to do, I did it. I enjoyed hurting people.
You enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it.
Where did that come from? It seems
I
like just a whole lot of anger.
Well, it was, but my mother had me go to psychiatrists, psychologists to see. First thing they wanted to know if I was prejudiced because it happened in a predominantly white neighborhood. But in New York City, we're not taught that. We're taught ethnicity and culture. We're not taught this one's black. Graduating class, in my homeroom class, 30-something people. I think 3 black, but 50% were black skin, which are Brazilian, African, Nigerian. So they found out I wasn't prejudiced, but I did have some anger issues. And when I asked you to do something, if you didn't do it, I made you do it, and I enjoyed it. It was,
Do you mind me asking, did you know your father? I know that's been like a big thing.
Well, my mother, she spoke about him several times, but never negatively. My mom always said that me and your dad didn't make it. He was very abusive. He used to beat her, just plainly talking. And when we was 12, we met him. She sent us to North Carolina. He had got his life together, and so when we were at 12, we took a Greyhound bus and went to meet him. And he had changed a lot, and his family is pretty rough. So a lot of times that's in your bloodline. You don't have to be raised by the person to pick up that generational influence, or in churches they say generational curses. It trickles down.
How was that meeting? How did you
It was
forge a
scary.
relationship? It was.
It was scary because I have his name. His name is Garland, and I'm not the oldest. So he looked at me, and his eyes was red as your shirt because someone had threw bleach in his eyes before he left. And his words were, pardon me, damn, you look like me. Remember, you're always going to be the black sheep because you're named like me. Yep, so that was it. And he wasn't very talkative, you know. Matter of fact, he never called us by names. It was always little boy. Never called me Garland.
Did you keep that relationship through the years?
We did. We worked it through. And I think when I got older, I asked him, why did you beat my mother? And he said, I knew this day was coming. He said, I don't remember. I was drunk all the time. I never remembered none of that. And I forgave him. We moved on.
Wow. So going back to New York and your dealings with the gang, you were brought on, and the person who brought you on said that you were crazy, and they wanted you for a specific reason.
Oh, yeah, I was the enforcer. They knew I would do it.
And so when you, as the enforcer, what kinds of things would you do to people?
Well, I specialize in hands. I would break all your fingers and collarbones and things like that.
And you said you enjoyed doing that at the time.
Yes, I did.
It is so, I'm trying to understand. It's amazing just because I know how far you've come and just how many people you have helped over the years since that time. How many people would you say that, but you never, did you ever kill anyone?
No, I'll leave all that alone. I don't remember numbers or nothing, stuff like that. You do it, and when the thrill is gone, the person is gone. I never hit a woman. I never hurt a woman. I got beat up by a lot of women because I would hurt their boyfriend or significant other or whatever, and they'll get mad and jump on me and scratch me all up. And when I say, you finish? And they'll scream and punch me and walk away.
So then what was it that finally made you get out of there? Because I know you left and ran for your life, basically.
Well, when I seen some of the people that used to work for me getting killed, and like any other thug or person that thinks they're hard, I'm ready to die. No, you're not. Everybody is, fearful of death. So I let my mother know, and I left. But what we failed to realize or come to a realization. I don't care where you leave, you still need to have a mind renewal, a brain transplant, because it's an old adage, you can take a person out of the city is still in the person. And I brought New York here. I still brought it here.
What does that mean?
The attitudes, the mannerisms, the image of who you are is still with you. It's not where you go, it's you're still bringing that with you.
Mhm.
And I brought it here, but I was more subtle with it. I think I was right around here when I came on 8th Street. It was a First Union Bank, and I went to the ATM to get some money. And the guy came up to me and said, "Hey, take out some money." I laughed at him. I'm like, "You don't know. You better get out of my face, man." So he pulled his little gun out, and I showed my gun was bigger than his. I said, "Look, I'm not in the mood." And he left. So, it's a mentality. And so when we try to work with young men, people, oh, you get them a job. They're not ready for no job yet. There's a whole transformation. There's a whole mind, a paradigm shift. You can't have a slave mentality. And I'm not talking about black or white. I'm talking about in bondage to wherever you're in and expect in 1 week to change. It takes some time to conform.
So, how did you
Mhm,
move on? How did you
mhm.
move past that?
Well, when I came here, I tried a church. Someone told me, if you go to church, Jesus will fix it. And because I wanted to stop, because my close friends said they didn't want to be involved with that stuff anymore, and they seen that I still had a pretty bad temper. So I went to a church, and I drove my motorcycle there, and I had on shorts, combat boots, and I went and I parked in the pastor's parking place because it had a shelter. I didn't know that it was his parking place. And I went inside and I sat on the front row, and they were looking at me because everybody was dressed and I had on shorts, and I was kind of smelly, wet because it was raining outside. A tank top, and the first thing somebody said to me, "You can't wear this here." Guy came over. I told him, "Get out of my face," and I didn't change my tone. Then somebody came and said something else. Maybe about 3 people came, and I told them, "Get out of my face.
And
Don't
that
come
didn't
in."
discourage you to just get up and leave.
No, yeah, that didn't bother me because the preacher was talking some good stuff. He was saying you're tired of drinking and that life, and then he said something. Y'all messing with this stuff. You can get your life together. So I stood up. Hey, they sit down again. So I thought that he was talking. So finally, they surrounded me and started whispering, and they asked me to leave. So I was devastated because I got put out of a church. I thought that was the lowest. So when they put me out, this older guy said, "Jesus loves you." I said, "Yeah, right. You don't love me." So he told me to come to morning prayer with him, and it'll fix it. And I went to morning prayer with him, and I found out you can work your con game in a church too. It's pretty easy. And they're all soft. And if you speak well, they'll give you money. It's always food, and it's always women. So I said,
Wow.
I'm going to work this too. So I worked that for a while. And but the word was working on me. I was changing, and I didn't know it. So after 3 years, I went to Brooklyn to visit my mom, and somebody invited me to speak somewhere. So I went there, and I ran into one of my old runners that used to work for me, a little kid. I took him in when he was like 12, 13 years old. And he had a baby now, and he's telling me, "Oh man, you holding it down." He said, "Oh, you got a Benz." He didn't know I had a job working at the post office. So I worked hard for that Mercedes Benz. But I couldn't tell him that I wasn't doing what I was doing anymore. So he said, "Hey, let me see my baby." He went in the house and got his little baby out. And I looked at him, and 3 hours I left. Driving back to Florida, it's 986 miles from his door to my door. I lived in Wells Road, Orange Park. I kept thinking about him. I kept thinking about him. I kept thinking about him. In my faith, that's called conviction. I didn't know then. And when I got in the house, I ran in. And when I ran in, I got on the phone and called my brother. I said, "Greg, go across the street, get Junior. I want to fly him here try to get his life together. He said, man, when you left, man, them cats that was looking for you, they roll up on him and they bust 7 caps in him. Junior's dead. And I changed right there. That was 36 years ago.
Just because you were there talking to him. Wow.
Yep. So right there, everything I thought I didn't know, I knew. It was a metamorphosis. I turned into another person, and everybody became Junior to this day.
Is that because you realized?
It was his blood was on my hands. I could have got him out of there, but I didn't. I think years ago, years after that, maybe 10, 20 years, I was at a church service and I told somebody about it. And a lady said, let me pray that you get that off of you so you don't think about it. I said, oh no, my pain is my strength. Leave that alone.
So you use that.
Everybody's Junior.
As motivation.
Yeah, everybody's him. Yeah.
So, and since then, you have, I mean, I have pages of what you have done since then. Right now, you're working with the sheriff's office. You're helping intercede and try to get to these young people before they get to a life that you led. And that's just one of a dozen different things that you've started. You were even invited to the White House at one point because of a program that you started during George W. Bush's term, and he wanted to model your program for the nation.
Yes.
Tell me about the program that you started that you are most proud of.
That I was most proud of.
Or that you feel has done the greatest, had the greatest influence on young people. And there are so many. I mean, Operation Safe Passage, Safe Passage, Operation Relocation, where you help young people who are really deep into this world and help them move and get out of here.
I think it's 2. As I sit back, I was never asked that question before. And it's really ironic you would ask that because I was driving yesterday with my wife and I thought about it. It's just a flash, if I can go back to that. It was getting them gainful employment. It was the ready for work.
And that's the one that President Bush wanted to
because,
talk to you about. Tell us about that.
Well, it was a partnership with a friend of mine. He wanted to renovate houses, and he kept having the houses being broken into. So he bought a safe box. They stole the safe box.
Is that here?
Yeah, here in Jacksonville. So they stole the safe box. And then he asked, he want to hire some winos, alcoholics. That didn't work. So I told him what you need to do is use the homeless people. Put the homeless people in the houses while they're under construction and they'll take ownership and they won't let nobody bother them. And then you put them in another house. And then I said, then you can hire ex-offenders or those unlovely, unworkable people, and they would do the job and it would be an incentive. I said, you need a hammer and you need a hope. Okay, I said, I can be the hammer and you can be the hope. Hope is the pay. If they get some pay, and then we can put them in school and train them electrician work, construction work. Because a lot of the guys that come out of that population are not ready work. They're not prepared for that, but they're prepared for entrepreneur because they ran their own business for years. They know how to do drugs. They know how to do import-export business. They understand that, and they will grind harder. So we started City Center Workforce Development, where we partnered, and we were able to help a lot of people. People forget just helping a person get out of the life is not helping them because now they're plugged back into the system. And when they're plugged back into the system, they realize they have child support issues that they always ran from before, okay? They realize they have medical challenges. Some of them have vision impaired. They can't see, or toothaches that they dealt with for years, but because of the marijuana or the drugs, it never surfaced. So when you have some money and a place to stay, that keeps you out of that life again. But so that was really impacting when I did that. So when we went to Washington, D.C., George W. Bush, he didn't just like the program, he liked my tenacity. He liked me. He was asked a question. We was designed to help the Article HR 7, the faith-based initiative. He used it as a pillar of his campaign when he ran for president. So he had to do good on his promise. So he brought 30 pastors from around the country to help him take it to the House to get a vote on it. And I was in the group with a mega church here, which was the Potter's House Christian Fellowship with Bishop Vaughn McLaughlin. I was his bodyguard at the time. So I bust into a meeting he was having, and they said, we need Garland in D.C. So we went to D.C. Bishop McLaughlin did not make it because it was his wedding anniversary. And his wife said, you're not going, you're staying with me.
Yeah.
So I went on my own. So when I went on my own, I'm going around the table, and they asked this pastor from Silicon Valley, what does he do? Well, I do this, and I don't need anything, and I grossed $3.5 million in my ministry last year. Then they asked another pastor. We did a youth trip to Iceland, and we took the singles ministry, and this other pastor said, we went to the inner city, and we painted faces, and we bought them bicycles and all. And I was number 28 in the questioning. So he said, okay, Garland, what do you do? What do you do best? And how can my money help what you do best better? I said, first of all, he needs to stay out of the inner city. I said, he's in there painting faces and buying bikes. And when you leave, we don't have no money to replace that. So you gave false hope to the inner city. Stay out of the urban community. You need to stick with going to Iceland and stuff. I don't even know how you're helping people in Iceland. There's no help in Iceland. And you over there, you need to take some of that money. And I said, I'm sorry. I'm messing up the whole meeting. And George W. Bush said, you're teaching us. Keep talking.
Wow.
Keep talking. So after that, they asked who would be the spokesperson for the House of Representatives. And they all said, Garland, we want him to talk. So the guy from Silicon Valley said, I don't like none of this stuff because all grants have strings attached to them. And I'm tired of the strings. And at that time, the president, he had a little temper, George W. Bush. His face got mad. And I said, sir, could I answer that question? He said, yeah. I said, sir, you told me you grossed $3.5 million last year. I said, you don't like strings? Why don't you cut a check for the president for at least $350,000 for that 501c3 tax exempt you've been using since you don't like strings? And everybody started laughing. So he said, could you stay on and work with me? And you work Monday through Friday, and you help us put some stuff together and review. So I stayed and worked with him for a while.
Wow.
And then he spied out. He sent Elaine Chao sent people here, and Brent Orrell, Department of Labor, to see
And
if I
Elaine
was
Chao was transportation.
to see if I was for
Secretary.
real. They asked me to stay some more days, and they sent the spies, and they talked to sheriff's office. I think it was John Rutherford at the time, and you know Garland Scott. They said yeah. So they talked to the jail, and they said okay, we want to give you some money to start the program ready for work, and that's how it started.
And did they care that you were a Republican, Democrat, whatever your background was?
No, they didn't care about none of that stuff. They wanted help. Most people, when it comes down to solving problems, they don't care what you want. If you solve the problem, they'll give you what you need. So after a while, they changed the criterias, and I resigned. Yeah,
Because they changed the rules.
they changed the rules.
And you,
It went to another partnership, and the rules changed. And my rules were you help everybody. My rules were you can have a violent background, violent crime. Their rules were nobody over 38, and their rules were you can't have any felons. And it made me look really bad in the city because I was known for helping everybody. And I remember a guy yelled for me from the jail, "You sell out, you no good," when I was walking past. And I was helping a guy. He did 5 years for a white collar crime, and I had him in electrical school. And I hugged him and on his work release. And I asked him, "Did you need anything before you go back?" He said, "Yeah, could I get a Whopper and a Coca-Cola?" I hadn't had one in 5 years. So I went to Union Street and got him one and hugged him. And then when I went to the office, they said, "We changed the criteria. You can't help him anymore." I said, "I resign."
wow.
Mm.
So when you go, you now go with
hmm
the sheriff's office
hmm
to some of these youth who
hmm
are like borderline. They could
uh,
go either way. They can go
uh,
deeper into what they've already gotten into, or
hmm
they can turn their lives around. What is their reaction? Do they respond to you? Do
yeah.
they think it's a joke? Do they
No,
just laugh and walk away?
no, we've done over, we're about at 1,100 now, 1,900 doors that we've been at. Shout out for my sheriff. He hit 450 doors on his own. He went there with us.
The current sheriff?
Sheriff T.K. Waters.
Hmm.
He did 450 doors. Um,
And what do you do when you go to their doors?
it's called a customized notification. We get a packet on them from Crimes Analysis, and it tells them what they're doing. And their social media or their thumbprint in social media shows them with AK-47s or Glocks or whatever, or thinking about retaliation, some get back from different people. So through that, we have accurate information that this person is involved. They haven't crossed the line yet, but they're right there, or some of them already been shot at. House is shot up. So we go to the door with the entire gang unit. They put on tactical gear, and we bring lieutenant and a sergeant, and we bring people. You can come along if you want. We brought council persons, senators, and we ride an SUV behind. So when the lieutenant goes to the door and knock on the door, and you see that entire gang unit, say, "Hey, this is you. We know what you've been doing, but we're not here to arrest you. If you have the courage, somebody wants to talk to you." So they say on the radio, "Bring him out." And I come out the car and I say, "Hey, I'm Garland Scott. Change your life today. You have the courage to take the steps, and be a part of what we're doing. I have two rules though. Don't ever lie to me, and don't trust me because I don't trust you. And if you are interested, we'll come back and we'll do an intake on you and see where we can help assist you." We try very hard not to use the word help because there's an entitlement. They think we're going to do everything. And we get about a 45% callback. The callback is if they're not home, we designed a letter that explains all of that out with the sheriff's signature on it. So when they see that letter, it's very scary. So the phone usually rings and they said, "I want to talk." So once we go out and talk to them, we find out where we can help them at. And it starts from there. Mm.
Their reaction when they see all of you
They
there,
freaked out.
they're shell shocked, I
They
would
freaked out.
imagine.
Yeah, they're scared.
But these are not
Mm.
those who have been so far
Yeah,
into
yeah,
this,
we got a lot of them that's far now.
really,
Yeah,
that have been doing it for years, that have
yeah.
been in
And
it.
you got a break. You better take this break.
So, how are they not afraid
Mm-hmm.
of retaliation and what's waiting for them if they do
Mm-hmm.
come to you?
So, say that question again.
So, if they decide,
Uh-huh.
yes, I would like to talk to you more about this, but I got these people over here, and if I start talking to you,
Mm-hmm.
then
Well,
I could get beat up. And
now it's been long enough that if they know they're working with me, a lot of them back off because I'm known as Switzerland. They know I'm the safe place now. They know Garland's not looking for information. We constantly tell them we're not concerned about the case. We're here to keep you safe, alive, and out of prison. And when they see that, when you had enough, you had enough. You don't care about no retaliation. You want out. Now, if you're a high level threat,
Mhm.
then I'll find a way to get you out of the city and I'll relocate you and start your life over somewhere else. But it really works. Hmm.
Why aren't more people doing what you're doing?
Well, you said something earlier. How do I do all of this stuff? And well, in my faith, we call it a call. And the only way to explain a call, it's a inherent ability. It's called natural. It's a natural ability. Um, Fish never go to swim school. They just find water and they swim. Eagles never go to flight school. They just get knocked over and they fly. When you have an inherent ability to do something, you get strength in it. A fish gets strong in the water. An eagle gets strong in a storm. Joy gets stronger behind that camera doing her job. It doesn't bother her. You can get called in the middle of the night. If the story's hot, you're going. You get energized. You're called to do it.
Mhm.
So when you're there, it's like it clicks. They know. The worse you are, it doesn't bother me. What bothers me is when you reject the help, because we can kind of see you're in. All of us can prophesy or see into the future by what people are doing now. If you're smoking and drinking, we know eventually. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
outcome of it. If you're shooting at people, we know you're
Mm.
going to get shot back, and it's going to hurt or ultimately kill you. So it's just, I'm wired to do that. Mhm.
So, and your nickname is Switzerland on the
Uh-huh.
streets. That's what they call you.
Yes. Hmm.
Have you ever thought about going back
To New
to New
York, I
York?
always go back. I'm safe now
Well, how are you safe now? When you
because
just told me about the story of you
that
going
was
back.
30 something years ago. And what happened, people recognize what I do. I think some of them call me the television evangelist, pastor, detective. They make up all kinds of names for me. My strength now, whatever I do, is the integrity that I do what I say I'm going to do with this population.
So you're not worried about
Ah,
anybody coming back after
nobody.
you after
No,
all these
no,
years?
I don't even think about it. I don't even think. I go wherever I want to go. I don't worry about it. Certain areas with my wife, certain areas I don't go in.
Mhm.
And my wife been married over 20 years now, and she's never been to my immediate family on my father's side because I know their lifestyle. You know, I'm not crazy. You don't walk in the fire.
Mhm.
But going home, we go home a lot. I go to New York. I walk the streets. Every now and then, I'll run into somebody and say, "Hey, you are." But in that lifestyle, Joy, they die out or they go to prison. So if I relocate somebody, it's probably a 2-year expiration date. The person that's looking for them are dead or in prison.
Wow.
It's just that fast.
And how
Mhm.
long do you think you're going to be doing this?
Well, I'm going to stay with the sheriff until he does his terms. And after that, I believe that I'm going to try to create a nonprofit and teach other people how to do it. It's getting to the time to pass the baton. I have too much up here that I have to show a lot of people how to do it because they, and you got to have the right people. It's not a cash cow. It's not a selfie thing. I haven't done interviews in years, because I just didn't want the clients to think I'm putting them on TV. We had one interview, one guy out of 39 relocations, and he wanted to do it. And we did it with him, and he's doing pretty well right now. Sometimes it's like when you mess with that camera with a guy that's trying to change his life, somebody see it's too much electronic technology, AI out
Mhm.
here that they'll spot you in a minute. But I love what I do, and my wife allows me to do it. She's with me, with it. She balances me. Like I said, she said this morning, that season for you trying to help everybody, you need to slow down now.
Are there children? Do you have children?
Yeah.
How many? Boys,
We
girls?
we have 9 together. When I met her, she had 5. She had 4, and I had 5. hmm
And are they all thriving?
Well, some are still bumping, but the rest of them, we're waiting for some of them to pick up where I'm at, to help me. We have a lot of grandkids. They're all good.
And that's what I'm wondering. Are
Mm.
any of them going to take the baton for you?
Some of them are showing. I have twin grandsons. They're 19, and they're showing a lot of interest in what I do. I believe the majority of them are going to pick it up. I have to keep remembering it took me a minute to get it. You know what I mean? So why I'm pushing them? My wife said something this morning about me, and I was fussing at my son for being me, and she reminded me, "You do the same thing." He's always taking somebody in, always helping somebody. I'm like, man, that guy's no good. You watch that guy. She's like, that's what you do. So it's good. I think the safest place on the planet is in the will of God, what you're supposed to be doing, and this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I don't. If I got uh, $50 million tomorrow, guess what I'll be doing? Going to the sheriff's office, seeing who's next on the list. I love what I do. Mhm,
Garland Scott,
mhm.
thank you so much for your time. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.